Alright, so this is the third video on the dreaded collar seam. I know that there's been 3 full videos on this one little seam, but that's because it is as important as it is. So I'm going to get into the intro, then we'll talk about this, but this is going to be the most comprehensive video that I have made so far about it, and there's going to be a lot of information in this that, as we discuss, this applies to every single human, always will, as long as there is a dreaded collar seam in anything that anybody wears forever. The human body skeletal system always will have to continue to work the way that it does, the only way that it does, and this will always be affecting human beings the exact same if it's in clothing. So, intro. We'll get into the intro. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 17th of November 2024. We are so much more than just a clothing company. We talk about the skeletal system of the human body. We discuss how the body's not about the fat content, it's not about the muscle mass, because those things at different times have different amounts within our lives, right? It's about the skeletal system and a natural positioning that we have, and we work out of that natural position, and we do everything from there. We have to allow the body to be in its natural position rather than getting it there by doing things, because we were designed by our God to just work. The way that we're designed is the way that we work. The clothing that we wear has the highest potential out of anything in our lives to alter our physical body's natural workings because it's placed on us. There's nothing else in life that we interact with the way that we do with clothing. So we show how to keep it centered, how to allow it to fit correct in the right locations, pants entirely above the hips, slightly higher in the front than the rear. The seams on the tops of the shoulders need to be behind that little bone that is actually your collarbone. That's how you allow your shoulders to be in their neutral position. And then the seams at the edges need to just be right at the very edges because that's where your shoulder moves. So we really get into it. We talk about the natural workings of the body. Out of modesty, I like to say, let's imagine we were just without clothing, walking on something like grass. How would the body operate without ever having been restricted or altered? And that's what we're trying to get back to. And we do that through mostly clothing. Also, we live in a modern, flat 2024. Man-made things are so unnatural because the hand has this natural radius to it. And the feet, with their gripped arches, good nails on the hands and toes, the feet need to grip texture to be able to work the way they were designed to. A lot of our flooring, concrete, tile, asphalt, very flat and unnatural. So hardwood flooring indoor, right? So tile, anything that's flat, that doesn't have natural texture the way that nature does. Because the body's natural, it doesn't mess with unnatural materials or unnaturally shaped things. Okay, so I'm going to get into the third video of the dreaded collar seam. 2 prerequisites just to allow the body to have a chance to operate natural. I've had them since before I founded In the Image Clothing Company, and as I discuss them, I'll stay on 1 foot just for the sake of showing that my body has natural balance. That's what we're trying to get to. The body works well without trying to get it to. We just need to allow it to. So, lacing your shoes with the technique that we use for In the Image Clothing Company, found where you find us. You can look up InTheImageClothingCompany.com if that is up and running at the date you're watching this video. Today's date, the current one that I'm filming this on, that's still under construction, but anywhere online you can find us, you can find the technique. Included with that is just tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside on both sides, right? That's going to just allow your foot to be unaltered. Any other shoelacing or tying combination that you ever choose to do will alter your foot in some kind of way. That is the way to allow the shoe to be shaped the way that your foot is, okay? Second prerequisite is to remove the tags from within your shoes all the way up through all of your clothing. The tags in the tongues of the shoes or anywhere in them really affect the ability to grip that natural arch, and then within any part of the clothing, they just cause a gap where they are, changing the workings of the body in that location. So let's get into this. Still on 1 foot. Could have stayed. I'm not doing it out of like pride, like look how good I am at balancing, but that's the whole point. Like I discussed, I try to be the best that I can, the example of what I'm discussing, these universal truths that do apply to every human. So yes, let's get into it. So when we have a shirt with the dreaded collar seam. I'll show the modification right off. I'm not gonna wait any longer. Okay, here's the dreaded collar seam. It comes down, and right where it meets this band of material, and I've shown this in both of the other two videos up until this point of the dreaded collar seam, right where it meets this band like this, right, comes down, and right where it hits that little top like lip of that band of material, that top lip is all you're cutting, right where this meets it. Okay, so right there. It's about a 1 millimeter little snip, just so that this gets cut. That little lip on top of that thing, okay? Dreaded collar seam. And what that does is allow this excess thickness of material that is the dreaded collar seam to sit flat against you, like, you know, like the rest of the collar does, because that little top lip that goes around there pushes out that extra material, and it doesn't sit flatly against your neck. I'm sticking with that wordage. So there we go. That's the modification. That's all you got to do. Literally one pair of scissors, literally a 1 millimeter, maybe 1.5 to 2 millimeter long snip. That's it. That is the modification, and it does so much. And I'm going to talk about more of what it does, and I've already discussed a lot of what it does. So when you have a tag, right? This is what it looks like when tags get removed. I mean, do it however you do it, but this is a shirt that I've worn many times. This tag's cut out, okay? You can see that it's kind of still like under there. But when you do have a tag and the dreaded collar seam, because as I've discussed, the collar seam puts the shirt toward the right side if it's on the left side, which it almost always is, then it's dropping your right shoulder into external rotation, because internal rotation, stemming from a gripped arch in the foot, is more of an elevated position, okay? Internal rotation, natural neutral stance. I have a lot of content discussing the natural stance of the body for In the Image Clothing Company. You can go look at that. Right side's so much more external, left side's mostly normal-ish internal. But since it goes to the right, that tag, if there is one, will sit off to the right of your spine. And what'll happen is there's already more of a gap between your spine and the inside part of your scapula, right? Scapulas are those two big flat bones on your back that your rotator cuff muscles connect into to operate your shoulder. There's more of a gap on the right side of your spine between that scapula and that spine side than there is on the left. And between there, you've got your rhomboids, you've got your mid traps, you've got, yeah, because the base of your upper trap, which is the one that I'm always talking about, is getting destroyed on the right side of the body because of many reasons stemming from the shoes, but then also this is huge because it's just elongated. The upper trap does this, okay? It raises and lowers your shoulder like a shrug. It connects from the base of your skull down on the edge of your cervical spine, which is your neck, and then it comes over across and connects onto your shoulder, okay? The upper trap looks just like this, from here, over, and up. And it goes like this, okay? And I've shown that within showing the dreaded collar seam. But it's important to show because right below that upper trap, there's a mid trap. And then below that, there's a lower trap. And those all work together to keep your shoulders just in their natural position. Now, that mid trap, which is right beneath that upper trap, helping to keep your shoulders like close to your spine in a sense, right? Those scapulas. This tag is going to be sitting on that mid trap. The reason I mentioned the upper trap, that's why it was kind of like I already mentioned this, but I'm still mentioning it, is because it's pretty well near where that upper trap meets the mid trap, but then mostly on the mid trap. This tag will be sitting. And so now you've got this synthetic material The body doesn't want to be touching at all. Off to the right of the spine on that mid trap, what'll happen is you'll get so tense muscle there. Your muscle will get very tense on the mid trap, right in here, right between the spine and then the edge of that bone, right? That's your scapula. Right in here between these two fingers, there's going to be more of a gap, and it's going to be so bound up because living out of this gap, like I say, stemming from if you are tying your shoes unevenly toward the right, there's already going to be more of a gap because your foundation, you're always walking in a little bit of a twist, like this. Right leg out, right arm out, gap on that spot, and so it's already always being kind of forced that way if your shoes are tied that way instead of evenly, right, as the prerequisite shows. But then you're having this tag sit there and the trap's just trying so hard to just work naturally. Again, traps just naturally do that motion. If there's something in the way and only on that right side because of what this is doing, placing it like that, this is the back of the shirt, right? So it'd be like this, tag off to the right. That trap is just going to be so bound up. So I always say we don't give exercises, we don't give stretches because we shouldn't have to stretch. If we're allowing our body to work, it just has the ranges of motion that it has, and it should just be able to get to those unless something's restricting it. And I don't give exercises like to get your body to do better at something, but I talk about one-time releases, and then we stop doing the things that are causing those imbalances. So releasing that really bound up part of the mid trap, but then also, as I've talked about, I have a video titled The Right Rear of the Neck. Something very similar to that with the title for In the Image Clothing Company, and I discussed this whole upward trap, right, and how that's just getting so tensed up. So those one-time releases in locations like that, I'm not really telling you to do that, but I'm telling you it has to happen, right? I say that because I'm not trying to say anything that people could potentially hurt themselves doing, but I am pointing out the fact that it is bound up because of if you are ever wearing this whole combination of tag and collar seam, even the collar seam alone, okay? Yeah, so I've talked about many times that since it's almost always on the left side and it's just stiffer, there's more material because it's folded over and stitched together. Like I was showing how the reason we cut that little top lip of that band that becomes the shoulder seams, right, is because then it allows it to sit against your neck, and then it's just more even across the neck, actually pretty well. But when you're going to reach, I've discussed so many times, you reach and this side will drop because this side is stiffer, okay, the material. So what'll happen actually, I'm just going to get into so much more depth than what I've just kind of briefly covered in the first two videos of this, of reaching and what happens there. You need to be able to reach. I'm going to set this down for just a second because this is very huge to see. As I show, when you're tying your shoes to the right, that right side's going out, right? The whole side's being pulled, pushed into external rotation. I say pushed because really it's collapsing that arch outward. So external rotation over here. This side's trying to be natural and it's actually not doing a terrible job at it. But this whole side can't get even, okay? And I've discussed this so many times. I did a video one time for In the Image Clothing Company titled Your Mid Left Back Pain is Your Right Shoelace, and that's what I was discussing, because this side's mostly stabilizing normally, but then this side, since it's so terribly not able to work, then you're actually feeling it over here because this side's kind of like locked in place. Pretty good place to a degree, as in natural, but it's like can't move because it's holding this whole side up, compensating for this not being able to do its job. So when we are trying to get this right leg internal, the body has to work on both sides, right? The body works as a whole. That's the only way it does anything, and that's our approach at In the Image Clothing Company. I always say if there's something within the body that is not working correct, something else and many things have to compensate just to try to keep us vertical on an earth with gravity, and just to keep us doing our natural things, keep us breathing, everything, right? Jaw stabilizing the entire body. Something has to compensate if something else is out of balance, okay, or inhibited in any way. Now, and sometimes that's out of our control, right? And that's okay, but whatever we can do, we do. So this collar seam, not allowing this side to reach just because there's stiffness in the material that's not over here. This right foot, if you had never tied your shoes unevenly, but you wore a shirt with the collar seam, your even legs, left side not being able to reach, puts this right leg out, because you got to compensate. Your spine has to stay doing something, holding your body up. And so even legs, even arms, right? Evenly internal, evenly natural. Now you reach, this side doesn't go. This side is going to just catch you in a sense, because to get this side of the leg internal, then this can reach. Do you see how that's like picture my spine in the center, twisting, right? It has to compensate. I'm here, but I want to get this forward. I have to counterbalance my body, right? If you're going to reach down to like get something on one foot, you're not going to be doing it with your opposite side, because it's just not going to work. You have to keep yourself over your center of gravity, right? And so yeah, if this can't reach, then this side is going to be the one that goes out to keep you over your balance point, right? So, but the point is, let's say you're not even on one foot, but if this side just can't come forward, you try to reach, this will, okay, excessively, incorrectly, hiking this hip, twisting the pelvis, twisting the spine, but really it's from here that's happening, right? In that case. So, because what I said is if you never tied your shoes uneven, that still would happen. And so that's why it's the body works as a whole, because even if you never were going to tie your shoes unevenly, let's say like you just started tying shoes out of somebody telling you, or you doing it on your own evenly, okay? When you started tying your shoes as like a young person, then you start wearing shirts that have the collar seam, and now it's like you can't reach. It's almost going to make you want to tie your shoes unevenly, because now you're more here with this foot out, because that's just the position that most people reach in anyway, right? Look at this, external, internal, but really it's just because this is so much farther back, as if I'm internally rotating, okay? So, dreaded collar seam, this thing's huge. I have, so far, up until today's date, no other video of one topic of thing that has 3 parts, and this one does. Meaning, that's how important it is. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with it. So, yeah, we just need to be able to get the body centered. The spine has to just stay neutral. And that's not allowing it to without a modification. So, yeah, what'll happen right on the base of your skull, potentially, right? I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but it has happened to me. Where that trap inserts, or where any muscles of the neck insert to the skull, right? Or we talk about the skeletal system. You can do all the massaging to the muscle you want, but if at the actual insertion where the muscle connects to the bone of the base of the skull to allow the muscle to have an anchor point, right? The muscle has, every muscle within the body, as far as I know, unless there's a specific case, but I mean, that's just how it would have to work, has 2 insertions. Let's say this is a bone, there's a muscle in between, and the muscle contracts to pull the bones together, okay? Like this. at the base of your skull, it'll insert, and then where it comes down, it'll insert, okay? The trap, the upper trap. On the actual bone of the skull, because we're about the skeletal system, you can get like really bound up. I don't even know exactly what it is, but like where the muscle actually adheres to the bone. Because working out of a position that's so unnatural for so long, whether it's years, decades, whatever it is, yeah, from what I'm discussing with the tag being there and the collar seam lifting slash dropping this side, right? Lifting this side, dropping this side, rotating you. That trap that only inserts the way it does, only works the way it does. And as my video shows, I went into such depth on the anatomy of the shoulders in that video. I titled it "Shoulders Naturally Sit Behind the Body," and I showed they sit here because where that trap connects is right in the back of your head, because it actually connects to your cervical spine, which is just your neck. That's what cervical means. It connects to the sides of the vertebrae all the way up your cervical spine, and so your shoulders sit back here, and this is actually the position your traps work in, and then your head can rotate and do things here. But if your collar seam or oversized shirt, or both in combination, and plus that tag just causing a gap, are putting your shoulders, and especially the right one where that tag is causing a gap, more like underneath your ear rather than in their natural position, then that trap is trying to work, but it's not even in line to where the muscle will contract, right? And so being so out of its natural position, it's just putting a ton of tension on the base of the skull. So you can get a lot of bound up stuff on the base of the skull right there. And not only, like I'm saying, could you, but I personally have had that happen. So the past few days I've been doing a lot of release on the actual bone, just the edge of that base of the skull, where that trap has been just trying so hard to work natural and not being allowed to for external reasons, right? So for years now, I've talked about the ears. I have a video titled "How Clothing Affects the Ears," and I've discussed how really all the ears are is just a hole between the base or the rear of the jaw and then the base of the skull right there. That's all it is, just a hole, right, to allow sound waves to get to your eardrum. And I've talked about how that can potentially get altered after being in a position that's just is being pulled out of its natural position, right? Potentially for years. What can happen is the cartilage within the ears can get altered to fill that gap that's there, right? And I've talked about that, and really a lot of what allowing your body to be in its natural position boils down to is the cartilage within your ears that has become such an unnatural shape that's just not allowing your jaw to get back, okay? And I've talked about that. What I'm saying though is that right side of the ear, I mentioned within the video on the ears, how clothing affects the ears, how that right ear probably, again, I can't quite speak for people unless I actually see your personal body's situation, but pretty darn universal, that right side of the ear is going to have a larger gap, okay? Because of what I'm saying here, but let's stick with the dreaded collar seam. Having that tag off to the right of the spine, having that excess gap where this scapula is just so out of its natural position, this jaw, meaning this side of the jaw, will be just following along. The jaw is trying to stabilize your whole body. That's its natural function, one of them. And having your shoulders so out of natural position, the jaw will just be trying to stabilize from there. And so if you keep your shoulders very even, you can look in a mirror as you do this. Make sure to start at the feet, right? If you're looking in the mirror to keep your shoulders even, look at your feet. Even if you're in a chronic patterning where they are a little bit out of balance, right side of your body's arch is more collapsed and outward because of tying shoes that way. Try your best to get your feet even, very even. Look at your hip bones and your feet. Look in the mirror, keep your shoulders very even. And now, while your shoulders are even, take your hands and feel the base of your ears. And if this right ear is quite a bit lower, well, that will prove to you, right? We're not proving things for the sake of proving, but I mean, that'll show you that your ear has been altered more on the right side, and that's a big reason, is that dreaded collar seam. So, and really especially the tag, because of the position the dreaded collar seam places it into. So again, it's one of those moments, I'm not going to tell you to do this, but I'm telling you it has to be done. Cartilage, like I said, it doesn't have nerve endings in it. It's not really alive in the way that the rest of the body is. It's different kind of material. It needs to be broken up to allow this jaw, this rear jawbone, to just come back. Okay, if this gap is here, this shoulder's going to just be falling. Okay, the jaw is a huge player into the entire body. I've mentioned the jaw so many times within talking about multiple parts of the body and many different items of clothing, even if they aren't ever touching the jaw actually, like physically, right? Because they're affecting the body, and the jaw stabilizes the body. So yeah, this gap takes this shoulder, but if the tag / collar seam is taking the shoulder, then it'll take the jaw for X amount of who knows, meaning just as long as you have been wearing that dreaded collar seam. Also, again, just, you know, stemming from the feet, it can also happen. So, but that's, like I said, I think a lot of times they're trying to play into patternings that people are in, but people have to stay centered. Human beings have to stay working together with gravity, if you will. We have a center, the sternum, the spine, the nose. We have to stay centered. Otherwise, I've mentioned so often, you're either using so much excess stabilizing muscles within the body in ways they're not even designed to work, to try to keep an imbalanced body vertical, or we would literally just fall over, because that's just what would happen. So that's why you're getting so fatigued, right? I mention all the time, one of the biggest reasons ever, universal, undisputed, if your body's imbalanced, then everything's just working out of a position that it doesn't, to keep you vertical, right? So dreaded collar seam from your shoulders. When you're breathing, your shoulders are just entirely involved in breathing. So I just want to really stick around that. I don't want to get off topic, because this is the third video of this, and I want to make it just, you know, direct to the dreaded collar seam. So yeah, yeah, I mean, the other thing, I've had an uneven bite for who knows how long, a long time, very long time. A lot of that was to do with dental work. I've mentioned before, I had a root canal on this front left tooth, and it was so poorly finished. And I'm not trying to say it was the dentist's fault, but I was 13 years old, and still, yeah, there was so much excess filling material left on the rear of my tooth to where my jaw was just so out of anywhere normal for over a decade. I'm 25 years old, so it's been a whole thing. But the point is, though, yeah, an uneven bite, the reason that could have been so poorly done without me noticing so much, or, I mean, I was also a kid and just didn't really know how to speak up and didn't know what was going on and stuff, but having a dreaded collar seam in your shirt, taking your body like this, your jaw just, again, will be moved, and so your bite, like the center of your two front teeth, will be off. If your jaw is out of alignment, it just will. It'll change the way your entire teeth mesh together, because you're not going to continue to have your teeth be in the same spot as they would be centered if your jaw bone is out of alignment. Your teeth will, that's what they do, right? They adjust and they move. And so, if people do have an uneven jaw and their lower jaw is toward the right, there you go. Dreaded collar seam. Directly on your shoulders, directly affecting your traps, changing your head position, changing the gap between your ear, changing your jaw, and there you go, an uneven bite. All the dental work in the world would never fix that, period. Never. It couldn't. Because then you go back into a shirt wearing an uneven thing, you go get you know, try to align your bite, that's great, but then you can't. You're fighting a physical piece of material placed on you uneven, and your jaw is trying to stabilize your body. So no amount of dental work ever, period, for any human could fix it. Because let's say you did, somehow you got it like permanently fixed into where you have an even bite. Well, now you're wearing imbalanced clothing, fighting a permanently fixed bite. And so now you have just immense amount of tension within your physical body, in your neck and in your head, and that would be a nightmare. So yeah, I mean, this is why we are in the Image Clothing Company, right? Things like that. I mean, no matter what, you spend all the thousands of dollars on like dental work to try to get your jaw to be straight. It's your clothing. Truth, right? So it's just, that's something I've had such personal experience with, like I said, with that what I discussed. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, because I actually looked in the mirror before I came over here today, because I've been doing so much adjustment, as I said, you know, loosening things that have been so stuck and everything from this for so many years, but then that's also playing into it. And as I looked in the mirror as I was coming over here to film this video today, third video on the dreaded color seam, I noticed my bite is so much more aligned. So, and I've noticed it's been getting more that way, but even after last night, I did a lot of releasing to where, yeah, and even shaving down that filling material from 12 years ago. So yeah, anyway, the dreaded collar seam, I want it to be so clear that we talk about things that are true, things that apply to everybody, things that no matter how small and minute, if you will, that's just a word that means very small, something like the dreaded collar seam modification could seem. And not only could seem, but it is. It's like I say, I don't even know if it really is 2 full millimeters long. I think it's 1 millimeter. I mean, you can see it. So small. I don't care how insignificant it could seem. It's just doing all of these things that I'm saying to every human, period. The degree might vary, because if your shirts fit you quite well, it's not going to alter you so much. But if you're wearing an oversized shirt and then you also have that seam, now there's the potential for it to slip around so much that tag will be definitely very much sitting imbalanced. And then also, since it takes your whole shoulder seams into a position that's unnatural, normally that left one comes forward, right? Because that would play into the same idea rotation wise that it's doing, right? So yeah, no matter what, no matter how insignificant, no matter how far-fetched, no matter how opinionated it could seem, no matter what, these are universal truths. This is stuff that we don't have opinions about. I'm not sitting here thinking I know something about a seam and I'm trying to make a company because I'm so like desperate to like bring up something that could affect people. This has 3 full videos now after this video is complete about the smallest little snip. So I don't want people to dismiss it, and I know I say that so often with things that I do talk about, because it will change your life. And you don't have to believe me. I've said that with just about everything that I've ever said for In the Image Clothing Company. You do not have to believe me about anything that I say here, but I'm speaking it because it's true. If you know me at all through In the Image Clothing Company, then you probably know me pretty well, because I have quite a few videos. I'm very just me in these videos. I don't care to just speak about stuff. I don't care to talk at all if it's just pointless. And this stuff is so absolutely, legitimately life-changing that I don't want people to dismiss the simplicity of it. So please try it. I've said, and I said within the second dreaded collar seam video for sure. I'm not sure if I said it within the first one, but if you have some kind of like work shirt, something that you put on to go get dirty in, if it has a dreaded collar seam, if you're worried about like ruining your clothing, thinking that that's what's going to happen, do it in that shirt. Put it on for a few minutes, see how it feels before you've done the modification. Take it off, do the little 1 to 2 millimeter snip. It's tiny. Put it back on, and see the difference. You will notice it for yourself. It does kind of get like worn in. I'm gonna take the quotes away. I mean, it does. It kind of gets worn in the sense of like wearing it for like the first minute or two, you might not really quite notice, but as the material kind of like falls into place, you know, having that now be allowed to be more malleable and kind of like drop to like even out, you know, it kind of gets a little bit more noticeable, I guess, as you wear it for, you know, an hour or two, or the second time you wear it or whatever. So I want, like, I think you can see the almost like plead within me to please try this collar seam modification, please, because I can see it. I have the eye to see what is happening within people's bodies because of what they are wearing. I mean, I know clothing in depth now. I know the human body in depth now. And walking around, sitting places, going wherever that I do see people, I can see the whole shoulder capsule as a whole, and I just see the patterning. It happens no matter what, if there is a dreaded collar seam in the shirt that any human being ever is wearing. So please just try it, because the extent on the effect that it has is insane. So yeah, okay. All right, I don't know, maybe there won't be another dreaded collar seam video, because I think that I've covered everything that I need to, because no matter how much more I could like in depth describe within the whole body and go into like parts that aren't even close to the body, like I was showing here with, you know, that are getting affected, the whole point is just do the modification. The whole point is just, I've given enough example, information, explanation, anatomy. I've had 3 different shirts that I've used within each of these videos to be the example, to where it's just what it is. I'm not trying to make it something, and I want it to be so real. I mean, it's just, please try it, please. So, because that's the thing. I mean, yes, shoelaces, yes, tags, but then if I were to go a third, like most important, I'd probably go to the dreaded collar seam next. Things within the flies of pants to change the position of the hips, you know, or zipper modification that we do have a video about, how zippers affect body mechanics, right, under In The Image Clothing Company. Things like that are also so important. Uneven drawstrings, you know, we have a video titled How Drawstrings Affect Body Mechanics. Things like that are so important, yes, but that's the thing, right? This is the shoulders, drawstrings or zippers or buttons would be the hips, and shoelaces are the feet. And those are the big 3, really, right, of the body. Elbows are a simple hinge, knees are a simple hinge. The spine's just going to do what the hips or shoulders are doing. It really is shoulders, hips, and feet. And that's your body, right? I mean, hands as well, but yeah, because I did a video yesterday titled The Feet, the Hands, and the Jaw. Well, yeah, okay. Anyway, gosh, I mean, I think you can tell how, like I'm saying, it's almost a plead. Please, please, please try the dreaded collar seam modification that we have for In The Image Clothing Company. I would not spend time making 3 full videos on a 1 to 2 millimeter snip if it wasn't as important as it is, okay? So, yeah. Thank you. It's crazy, man. It's, you know, simple. Simple, simple, simple. Start tying your shoes even. Your life will change. Start doing this. Your life will change. Cut the tags out of your clothing. Your life will change. I mean, this stuff couldn't be more real. So, all right. Like I said, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Check out In The Image Clothing Company podcast when we're talking about things being real, the gospel of Jesus Christ. As I say, you don't have to believe me on anything, but it is the truth of all things. We just have beautiful discussions I think they're beautiful. It's just me speaking, at least so far, up until the last one we've done. But yes, on the gospel of Jesus Christ, check it out. We will have clothing available when it comes, always made out of 100% natural materials. We will never have a collar seam in anything we ever put out, ever. No tags protruding from the inside, because that's one of our prerequisites, so we won't have that be even possible to have to happen. And yeah, just staying centered, allowing the body to work. Please only ever buy our clothing if you try to get it in your size. Don't ever purchase things from In The Image Clothing Company. I mean it. Don't even buy it from In The Image Clothing Company if you're planning to purchase it oversized to fit out of fashion. Do not. The whole intent is to allow the body to work. And in order for that to happen, it has to fit on the body correct, the way that it works. Okay, it only goes one way. I always say that. We have to do everything we can within every aspect of our physical life to work around our body's natural workings. We cannot go the other way. Something like the dreaded collar seam is essentially going the other way. So, okay, I'm just gonna cut it in a good way. I mean, I'm very content, but yeah, thank you.